It's a non-convertible debenture. You see, when you're talking about a non-convertible debenture, you are talking about a single instrument. It's a debt instrument, but it is a single instrument. For me, investing in a single instrument is not an investment at all, because it is the opposite of diversification. The opposite of diversification is a concept called concentration. I love Narayan Murthy and the company he founded, Infosys. So I'm going to put all my money in Infosys. That is concentration. Diversification is, I'm going to have a well-balanced portfolio spread across stocks and sectors, 30, 40 stocks. That is diversification. Now your question is on debt. When I look at debt, I will never look at a single debt. For me to look at single debt, it must be either a government bond which is guaranteed by the government of India, not one instrument of a private company. So if you are looking at the interest rate, you are definitely running the risk of concentration. Okay? And one more thing is, how do you judge the safety or otherwise of a debt instrument? You must ask yourself a question. Why does somebody need to offer 13.5%? Higher the interest, higher the risk. Okay? Higher the interest, higher the risk. If Larsen and Toubro were to come out with non-convertible debentures tomorrow, it's a blue chip company, would they offer 13.5%?
At the most 10.
At the most. Sometimes they may even get money for 0.5% or 1% under the bank deposit rate. So these are questions that you must need to ask. So for two reasons, I would not touch the instrument you mentioned just now. One is because it's not a diversified. When you invest in a debt fund, you'll find nearly 25, 30, sometimes even 50 to 100 debt instruments in the portfolio. So somebody defaults, there is no problem. Plus, there will be some scientific way of picking up those instruments. One company can go from anywhere to zero, like Enron, WorldCom during the last crisis, or so many software companies that failed. But a diversified portfolio of debt does not go to zero. The second reason why I would not touch it is, for me, a high rate of interest is a red light. It's a light of warning.
See, my question is,
yes.
You started defining a mutual fund as a common pooled in by investors for investment in a stated objective. But my experience in India is the stated objective actually represents the mandate on the basis of which funds raise money. And there is no standardization in the sense that what is mid cap for one is small cap for another. Infrastructure, widely misunderstood. You see, infrastructure creators, infrastructure builders, infrastructure enablers. Even a company supplying nuts and bolts to telecom company is considered infrastructure. So unless the regulator standardizes these terms, see, stated objectives, you see, it's that what you are saying is your objective should match the stated objective of the pool.
Correct.
But when there is no standardization of the mandate itself, does it not cause confusion to the investors?
Not at all. The point is, I would agree with you if you are investing only in one mutual fund. You take one mid-cap fund, like Sundaram Mutual Fund, one of the sponsors, they have got a good fund called the Sundaram Select Mid-Cap. If that is going to be my sole investment in mutual fund, it would suffer from all the lacuna that you have mentioned. Okay, what they define as a mutual fund may not be what I define as a mutual fund. I agree. But I gave you an example there, where a 4 lakh investment went into 4 different kinds of funds. Each of them has a stated objective. One would be a large cap, one would be a slightly oriented towards mid caps. The underlying point is that every one of them is a diversified equity fund in its own right. Some difference of opinion on what one fund is, what other fund is, whether this constitutes infrastructure, whether that makes no difference at all. Unfortunately, I can't readily get the slide here. But the answer to your question actually comes from Benjamin Graham. Benjamin Graham is the guru of Warren Buffett. And he has written the best ever book on equity investment called The Intelligent Investor. And he says, no, nothing is going to ever affect your investment process or investment returns based on some difference of opinion about a selection of an individual stock. What is going to affect you is, are you departing from the principles of investment? Are you investing in one stock? If you are investing in 60 stocks, and those 60 stocks have a certain stated objective, but one person has got one opinion on it, another person has got another opinion on it, it's not going to make a difference because you are not departing from diversification. So I don't see any problem with some difference of opinion has to be there. There's one more point in investment advising which I've seen. I may drop a financial plan. The people at Simplus may drop a financial plan. Another financial advisor may drop a financial plan for the same person. We were talking about investments. Now let's come to persons. The three plans may differ in certain areas. That does not mean that the three plans are wrong, or one of them is right and two of them are wrong. The beauty of investment is there can be 2 or 3 answers to the same question. One need not be right, others need not be wrong. So long as the principles are broadly applied, there can be 3 right answers to a question. This is one thing that we have to understand in investment. So I don't see any problem with a little bit of difference of opinion. It's okay. And if you want to really protect yourself, go for a total stock market index fund. I told you that something that tracks the NSE 500. Large cap, mid cap, small cap, value, growth, every philosophy, every size of company, everything worthwhile is addressed there. That's the simple answer. Go for the broadest diversification possible. Everything, nobody can say, this is one way of looking at it or that's the another way of looking at it. That's why the great writers in the US advise people, if you are investing in the stock market, go for a total stock market index fund. All questions are answered, no arguments. Bond market, total bond market index fund. REITs, real estate, total REIT index in the Vanguard has got the Vanguard total REIT index fund. You are into all real estate in the US. You are into residential premises, commercial premises, wheat fields, orchards, your infrastructure like your warehouses, bridges, ports, everything. You are into the whole market. It's that simple.
Sir, my question to you is, with respect to the gold, even though you told that considering the last 20 years and 30 years, present trend, if you consider for last 3 to 4 years, there is a very good appreciation in the gold. And there are
I have heard of many schemes with respect to
there are many schemes with respect to purchase of gold-linked investment. So what is your advice on this?
I've already answered the question, but I'll answer it again. It's very easy to get misled by something called a recency bias. In behavioral finance, there is something called a recency bias. Something that has given me a good appreciation recently, I think that's the best. My point is, take a person of your age. You may have easily 20, 25, 30 years to go before you cash in something like a retirement fund. Recency bias can mislead you because if you believe that gold is very good because it has given me returns in the last 3-4 years, and I'm now going to buy and hold gold for the next 3 decades, I can get a very nasty shock when I see the final returns in gold. I can show you 200-year returns in the United States. In 200 years, gold and the consumer price index or the inflation rate have roughly gone the same as each other. Real estate and equity have gone far higher than them. So just because something is glamorous at one time does not mean I as an advisor have to tell you to put your money there. A lot of these so-called advisors will tell you to put your money there. Why? It is easy to sell. It is very easy for me, because gold has done well, to tell, here's a gold mutual fund, put your money. You will put your money. It is difficult for me to tell you, don't put your money there, because the long-term returns on gold only equal inflation, they don't beat it. Okay, but this is the correct advice. See, when you come to an advisor, there are one set of clients who want the advisor to confirm some belief that they have. I go to a doctor, I think I have malaria. Easiest thing for the doctor to do is write out a malaria prescription and take your money and tell you goodbye. The difficult thing to do is actually examine you, diagnose the correct thing, and then tell you that you do not have malaria, you have something else. So my task is not to give you something you like to hear. My task is to give you what I believe is the best answer from your point of view. And viewed from any angle, gold is not a good long-term investment. Just as there have been the last 10 years where the gold has performed well, I can show you, unfortunately I don't have that presentation here, I can show you periods of 15, 20 years where gold has not even equaled inflation. Sorry. Having said that, there are some advisors who say that because in bad times, tomorrow some war breaks out, something happens, equity and others may fall but gold may rise. We call it non-correlated investments, one thing behaving differently from another. In fact, Harry Markowitz, an economist, won the Nobel Prize for his research on modern portfolio theory and non-correlation. Students of finance will know that. But I don't want to take you into all that. The point was, some advisors say that you can have some small little amount of gold there just to diversify. If you want to do that, I have no problem. But you cannot give it that kind of importance. You cannot give it that kind of importance. There's one more thing, you have asked a good question, one more thing. There is a hallmark of a good investment. There is something known as a hallmark of a good growth investment. And the hallmark of a good growth investment is twofold. One is a capital, a principal amount that grows steadily in the long run. And the second is a growing income stream. Take real estate. I'm not talking about real estate or an apartment for you to live in. I'm talking about real estate as an investment. You purchase the real estate, you let it out. You paid, let's say, 60 lakhs for an apartment. Over a period of time, the 60 lakhs will increase. And you are now getting a rental, let's say 18,000 rupees of rental. Over a period of time, when you renew your lease, you'll be renewing it for 20 or 21,000. Next will be 23, 24,000. So a growing principal and a growing income stream are the hallmarks of a good investment, of a good growth investment. Gold does not throw off returns in terms of cash. Cash returns are very, very important. Take an equity portfolio. There is growth in value over a period of time, there are dividends. In fact, you will not understand this, how important the reinvestment of dividends are. One of the best investment strategies for growth is to buy a piece of real estate, give it out on rent, say an apartment, then invest that rent in something like an equity mutual fund. One of the finest strategies where you exploit both the diversification between equity and real estate, the income stream getting reinvested. Just to give you an example of how powerful this is, there is a US research firm called Crandall, Pierce and Company. Now, Crandall, Pierce and Company did research about the reinvestment of dividends. When we tell equity investors to reinvest dividends, I'm not talking about mutual fund investment. Mutual funds do it themselves. But when you buy stocks, like in a demat account, when we tell people to reinvest dividends, they say, what dividends? Even if you have 10 lakh portfolio, you'll get 10,000, 15,000 dividends per year. That is like coffee money. Now, for people who have got that, Crandall, Pierce and Company, I still remember these figures. 1946 to 2002, 56 years of period, they took the S&P 500 index as a proxy for a diversified portfolio. If you had invested $1 in 1946, the $1 would have grown to $47 in between this period of 46 to 52 to 2002. If you did not reinvest dividends. Understand this. 1946 start date, 2002 end date. $1 invested in the US stock market would have grown to $47 if you did not reinvest dividends. If you reinvested dividends, the same $1 would have grown to $405. $405. So what we think is unimportant, dividends are coffee money, it's very important. It is very important. So an investment like gold, which does not throw off cash values that can be reinvested, is not a good investment. It's much better than, it was a very good question. Instead of answering it ineffectively, I would rather answer it effectively. Give me 2 minutes, I will answer your question. Because I can answer it just like this, I can answer it very effectively. I would rather answer it effectively. Any other questions, I will answer till then. Reviews, I can answer reviews. About that, which mutual fund is good, bad, top now and bottom later, that I'll answer a little later. Reviews, what is a review? Review is nothing complicated. A review does not mean a change. A change is churning. A review is being aware. Let me tell you what a review is. Filing your investment papers correctly. 1 or 2, maximum 3 funds. Say 1 for direct equity, 1 for mutual fund, 1 for maybe bank deposits and whatever other things you have. Once in 3 months, spending 15 minutes on it. No study, no calculation. Open the file, just flip through the pages. That is a review. Okay? What is a review? Review. Re means to do something again. View is an inspection. So inspecting things once in a way. Now, if you review, one of the greatest advantages of a review is not to tell you what to do, what not to do, just to be aware of your investments. When people sit in the office with me, once or twice I even allow them to answer telephone calls, which may come at that time on their cell phones. The reason is it's very interesting to observe them, especially in this period or maybe the next month, April, after the financial year is over. A client may be sitting with me for investment advice when he gets a call from his CA. And the CA will be asking him, how much did you put in PPF this year? He said, okay, I'll go back home, check up and let you know. What about this particular investment? I'll let you know, I'll let you know. If somebody keeps on saying that, answers questions like this, I will let you know. It shows me that the person is not reviewing his investments. People who are reviewing their investments, as they are sitting there before me, when they get the call from their chartered accountant, they immediately reply, this year I have so far put in 80,000, I'm going to put in 20,000 more. See, why? He is aware. In fact, if you ask me the greatest advantage of a review, it is nothing but being aware of your investments. The next question that you asked is, when we review, should it provoke us to do something? This is a much more difficult question to answer, but I will certainly give you a few pieces of advice there. When you are talking about doing something, we must ask ourselves, what is the reason we are doing something? If there is a change in law, because there is a change in law, ELSS funds no longer carry tax exemption. I must stop my investments in ELSS. That's a very good reason for stopping. Just because one particular fund is not doing well, there is no call to stop my investment in it if it is a diversified equity fund. John Bogle, stay the course. Okay? One way of preventing it is, like I told you, when you have an investment program, if you are putting 6,000 rupees per month, do not put it in one fund. At least have 3 funds. Diversify between passive management, active management, asset allocation. Okay, this would be something that then you really don't have to take steps. It is true that there will be some even diversified equity funds that consistently for a very long period of time underperform. Maybe after giving them a very fair chance, you can change. Very often you will find that lump sum investment, when you get poor returns, systematic investment you may get better returns, or vice versa. So even a change in the technique can sometimes give you good returns out of a not so very good fund. But there is one thing that I have to caution you about, and that is chasing performance. Chasing performance is, financial journalists whom I was talking about are very good at coming annual list of top funds, 5-star, 4-star, all these things. Okay, this investing according to this would be very, very dangerous. And this is what I wanted to tell you, the so-called hot funds. Don't change a fund that is well diversified simply because it is not performing for a year or two. You can get burnt. We'll just tell you this. The Lipper and Bogle Financial Research Center made a study of 424 mutual funds in the US with at least 100 million in assets in December 1995. They compared the rankings of the top funds in terms of performance in the 6-year period from December 1993 to 99 with the rankings of the same funds in the period December 1999 to 2005. So, one 6-year period 93-99, next is 99-2005. The results are shown in the next slide. Look at this. The number one slide here in the next period was 410. The number two slide here was 397. In fact, in these top funds, the best was number 8, which was 167. Okay, now let me be fair. I do not expect these 10 funds to be having the same ranks here. No. You even slip to within the 50, I have no problem. Number 1 is say number 40, I have no problem. But this kind of thing, take real life. Once again, very often when you compare an investment situation to a real life situation, you get the answers. In a class, there are the top 5 students and bottom 5 or 10 students in a class of 80. Now, will you generally find a top 5 fellow, when there is no such thing as illness or accident or something like that, and the normal side, a top 5 chap, in the very next year, first year BCom, I was ranked number 2, second year BCom, I'm 79. Unlikely. Unlikely. Okay? And similarly, somebody who is number 85 becoming number 1, also unlikely. But here it's happening. So don't chase performance. Okay, that is why this is one of the reasons why more and more they are shifting to passive mutual fund. In fact, I hope that little, this is there, read this. This is nice. Maybe the next year's laggards, and the next year's laggards may do reasonably well. Important thing is, go back to John Bogle. Stay the course. Stay the course. Of course, in computers they have this saying, it's called garbage in, garbage out. So if you're investing in garbage, no technique will come in. What I mean by garbage is, say a sector fund. Okay, if that sector is really gone, or something that is not at all diversified, then it's gone. But any reasonably diversified fund, especially if you can shift between active management, passive management, all those things, I don't think you're much to worry.